What's going on, guys? SGR here. Welcome back to another video, and today we are talking about brand new trade rumors between the Dolphins and the Washington Redskins for the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Let's get right into it. If you enjoy this content, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Okay, so in a tweet released yesterday by Dan Sileo, he said, and I quote, "The Miami Dolphins are working on a trade with the Redskins for the number 2 pick in the NFL draft." And this is huge. This changes everything in this draft class this year. This shakes up everything, with multiple things being affected, multiple teams being affected, not just the Dolphins and the Redskins, but the Lions too, depending on what the Dolphins are doing. And I think the first thing we have to mention, are the Dolphins going to take Chase Young or Tua? I think there's very good possibilities for each one, but they definitely have their cons too. We'll start with Chase Young. Chase Young is by far best defensive player in the draft, and I think if you're the Dolphins looking from a rebuild status, you're going to think, okay, so we need, first two things we need are a franchise quarterback and the guy who's going to anchor our defense for the remainder of our rebuild till we get back to championship status. And if you're the Dolphins, you have Chase Young and Tua. And I think Chase Young is overall the better choice here, because he's not injury prone like Tua is, but we'll talk about Tua's injury more later. And I think he just has more upside. With Tua, he's, a scrambler, which just leaves him the chance to get injured. You don't see scrambling quarterbacks make it long in this league, like Michael Vick, minus prison. I mean, he was done after like 2011. He had that 2-game stint with the Steelers, and that's it. Because once you hit that 30 age, your legs, they start to go. And so you're probably looking for a more pocket passer quarterback who can succeed. Like, you see all older quarterbacks are like Matthew Stafford, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. All these guys are pocket passers. They weren't runners. They didn't rely on their legs. Like, I don't even think Lamar Jackson's going to make it into, like, age 33. I mean, you never know. But I think Chase Young definitely has more of an upside, just because his raw strength and power and what we've seen him able to do. He's actually been compared to the Bosa brothers. He's been compared to J.J. Watt. And I think just his raw physicality and the measurables, I think with training and the right team and he can be a true game wrecker. And the next thing I want to talk about is, of course, Tua's injuries. He sustained a season-ending injury this past college football season, dislocated right hip. He also had a surgery before the LSU game. So he's had multiple injuries, and of course, if you're the Dolphins, Tua's injury-prone. You don't have a good offensive line. I think Tua has more potential to be a bust than Chase Young, just for the fact that Tua has had more injuries throughout his college career. Chase Young's had not many, if any at all. I'm not sure. I don't think he's had any injuries. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Tua, on the other hand, he's had a devastating hip dislocation. You never know if that's an injury a scrambling quarterback can bounce back from. And of course, you never know with, his leg. He got another, it was like a leg or a knee surgery, and he was out for 2 weeks. You never know if that also limits his scrambling ability, which is what, we see him doing in college. He would roll out of the pocket, and he would just throw dimes to Jerry Jeudy down the field. And so I'm thinking, if you're the Dolphins, do you want to take the risk on Tua, who, of course, has a tremendous upside if he stays on the field and not injured? It's the same dilemma with Carson Wentz when the Eagles were thinking of selecting him. He's got great upside, and you can see it when he's playing. When he's playing good without being injured, he's playing almost MVP caliber football. But then, he's just so injury prone. He's actually been injured and out more games than he's played since he was picked by the Eagles. And I think Tua can be the exact same way. He can either be an MVP caliber player, or he can be like Carson Wentz and just keep getting hurt over and over again, which makes him a bust. And if you're the Dolphins and you're trading to the number 2 pick, and your top 2, you don't want your second overall pick to be a bust, because that's just a waste of draft capital. And especially if you're rebuilding, you need all your draft picks to land. So I think Chase Young would be the safe pick, Tua would be the risk. but Tua has higher upside if he can stay healthy. And so I think the next thing we should definitely talk about is what the Lions are going to do. So if the Dolphins are trading up to take Tua, this leaves Chase Young on the board because Cincinnati Bengals definitely taking Burrow. And so if you're the Lions, you're thinking, okay, do we go with what our draft plan is already? Because they've already got one. Everyone makes their draft plans right after the declaring for the draft period is over. And so, if you're the Lions, are you sticking to your draft plan, or are you going and taking Chase Young? And I think that's the big question here. The Lions, of course, their defense needs work. I think that's where they're going to be focusing, especially in this draft. And so, many people are predicting they took Jeffrey Okudah, and of course, he has great upside too. But Chase Young, he's a generational superstar. And if you're the Lions, do you take Chase Young and further strengthen your defensive line, or do you want to strengthen your awful secondary? It's Darius Slay and garbage bags on fire. That's Lions secondary. I mean, they just get beat all the time by receivers. And so, of course, the Lions are known for having some of the best players to ever play the game, like Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, Night Train Lane. So are you going to get another potentially superstar player like Chase Young? Or do you want to go with secondary? And I think if you're the Lions, what I would do is I would definitely take Chase Young and then maybe trade up and get another first-round pick and start to reinforce your secondary. Maybe get rid of some players who've been underperforming but still have high value to other teams, especially players like maybe Marvin Jones Jr., Snacks Harrison, maybe even Darius Slay, just to try and get those younger guys to help out your defense. Maybe even Matthew Stafford. We've seen Jeff Driscoll and David Blau. They both look decent and have starting quarterback caliber in a couple years. I mean, David Blau lit up the Bears on Thanksgiving Day. And also, if you're the Lions, you've got an aging Matthew Stafford, a terrible offensive line. I think it's time the Lions try to go tank, and I think the Lions will go defense this draft and should try and tank next year to get Trevor Lawrence. If I'm the Lions front office, that's what I'm planning on doing. Invest in major draft capital, and I think Chase Young this year, Trevor Lawrence next year, and I think in maybe 5-6 years you can see the Lions as a true Super Bowl contender. I know that seems unlikely, knowing the Lions, but I think it's definitely possible if you're Detroit. If you get a defensive superstar this year and Trevor Lawrence next year, you can go to high places with other good draft picks that land in the early first rounds. And so the last point I'm going to talk about is who are the Redskins going to take? Now, it's obvious the Redskins are going to get the Dolphins' number 5 pick. Maybe one of their the Dolphins have 3 first-round picks. They have 18, and I think it's 22 or 23. And I think the Redskins might get 5, 18, and maybe like a third or fourth round. And so if you're the Redskins, I think you have Ryan Kerrigan on defense. You have Dwayne Haskins. He performed, but he didn't perform as well as I think some people hoped. And I think if you're the Redskins front office, if you're Dan Snyder, you're thinking, okay, so we have Terry McLaurin. I think we need to go offensive line. Now, definitely don't go offensive line at number 5. No. I think number 5, you should try and definitely fix your secondary, just like the Lions should. Grant Delpit, he's great, although he's not projected to go till late in the first round. Maybe Jeff Okudah, whoever else, maybe a corner, maybe even a linebacker. There aren't that many shutdown linebackers in this draft class, like to go top 5, per se. But I definitely do think that if you're the Redskins, you've got to be thinking defense secondary Your D line is not your weakest point. So I think trading back, I don't think there's that specific need for Chase Young if you can instead get two good quality players at number 5 and number 18. Um, and especially the fact that you guys have been just getting demolished passing wise. I've seen you guys on TV, especially with the Redskins, just getting beat over the top over and over again. Those safeties need work, corners need work, and I think offense will come later. But with especially Bo Nix and Trevor Lawrence in the future, like the Lions should do too. But I think you should try to get two solid good players instead of that one superstar at a position that's already not your worst place. And then to wrap this up, I think if I'm the Dolphins, I'm taking Chase Young and waiting until next year. Give Josh Rosen another chance. See where we're at in a year. If I'm another team, I think I'm passing on Tua because he's so injury prone. Maybe see if you can get him late first round. Maybe. I think the Redskins definitely get a good value for the number 2 pick, especially from the Dolphins, who are looking to definitely get that superstar they're going to need for their rebuild as the face of their franchise. And I think if you're the Lions and the Dolphins are going with Tua Tagovailoa, you gotta take the opportunity and go with Chase Young. You cannot give that opportunity up. And so that's where I'm at on these trade rumors. I think there's definitely a possibility of it happening, but at this point it's just speculation. And that's all from me. I'll see you guys later. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks.